Welcome to the Monday Morning Report. I'm going to try to kick off this whole series with this particular video and clue you into the why that is behind everything, what's going on here. So please enjoy, and hopefully this will inspire you to a level that exceeds my inspiration in this topic and will uh, make you consciously working towards doing something about it. It's important. So, thanks for watching, and please hang in till the end. Okay, for me, the beginning of all of this started with Ralph Witchy's channel. He does a series of very well done, long videos that explain how the history of the planet is recorded, what it shows the cycles of life to be like on this planet, and that 12% of the time we have warm, wonderful climate the way we've enjoyed for the last 12,000 years or so. And beyond that, the other 88% of the time, most of the globe's covered in ice. And that's the way it is here, life on Earth. Not something any of us are taught, not something any of us are, realize. But if you're, of course, in the industries that focus on these events, on how to collect the information, then of course you're aware of it and you understand it's just a given. But if you're not, you you know you have no reason to believe it. So I trust you to be able to make decisions and judge for yourself. So do some research. Check out Ralph's channel and see what he presents. See if you enjoy it and can appreciate it. I actually didn't believe it when I saw it, and so I went and looked up his references and did my own research on that data, which is available on the internet. And I agree with him. He's absolutely right. The planet will do what it has done, and we are at an opportune time to actually witness a transformation which is going to be devastating within our lifetimes. So it's time to wake up, smell the coffee, and go for that first cup. We need to take action. So let's move on. Of course, if you're going to engage Ralph's website and look at things, you're going to have to start discounting and disbelieving the science you've been taught. This particular group, represented by the Thunderbolts Project, is a collection of scientists who have broken away from the business science that exists today and are looking at you know what reality and history really tells us. So it's a wonderful site. I really encourage you to look at it. Essentially, we live in an electric universe, and there's no Brexit for us. You can't get out of it. This is the way things are, and you're going to need to get on board if you really want to understand and create models that enable you to move ahead. Okay, global warming is it's a lie. You've been scammed. Al Gore is opportunist who just hopped on board and made millions by taking advantage of it. So, and other, the world nations have all joined in because they saw an opportunity to tax citizens and companies, which is necessary for them to operate. So, I'm not saying that they, shouldn't have done it. They need to come up with better ways to tax people. And also, they need to direct their energies and efforts in ways that actually make sense. Chasing down global warming, doing things, inspiring people to pollute the atmosphere and hasten the coming glacial age is not the way to go. It's incredibly un, unbelievable how contrary to reality this whole theory is. Check out Tony Heller's channel. He's got a lot of personal stuff on this. He hasn't really separated it out into playlists, but these two videos that he put together are central to his work. I recommend you not spend a lot of time here. Once you see what he's put together in terms of the evidence and the facts, you'll understand that you shouldn't spend any more time on this at all. It's not worth it. But on the other hand, unlike our current president, God bless Trump, um, he isn't taking the right actions that need to be taken either. So not really helping. But he is saving his industrial partners from having to pay excessive taxes. Okay, moving on. Okay, these four channels are the primary ones that I like to check in on, if not daily, within, on a weekly basis, multiple times a week. I'll look into these guys. Each of them contributes slightly different information and have different aspects that they emphasize. Oppenheimer Ranch Project, run by David, or Diamond as he likes to be called, um, focuses on, down to earth prepping, moving out of the way of coming disasters, um, getting your act together and paying attention. He and I totally align on what the economy is doing and what it's good for, and the dangers that it presents for all of us. But his activity, the more I study it, the more I think he's doing the best he can do. It still isn't good enough because, and we'll get to that later. Adapt 2030, David Dubine is a coffee trader, and he essentially is in Asia and integrates well with that culture and has studied the history and completely confirms the cyclic trends that are natural to the earth that go back in history, and how all the stuff that Rolf which it presented aligns with the falls of past civilizations. And as such, he first realized it as showing up years ago in crop production, and continues to track the changing weather and the salient points that discount and invalidate global warming. So it's a good site. His viewers also send in pictures from their locales around the world that you won't ever see on the news channels. So it's good to know. The next one here, Suspicious Observers, is 322,000 plus people today. It's constantly growing. It's run by a ex-lawyer who uh, worked doing research for legal purposes and discovered the coming glacial age and the invalidation of global warming. And he has continued to keep that research going actively, and even to the extent of encouraging people to author scientific studies and really continue to validate the whole change in the environment. He too moved his family, like Diamond did, um, to locations that make sense in terms of their research on the most likely survivable spots on the planet. Naturally, the entire planet can't take advantage of that, so um, it may in fact give his family a leg up over others, and also because of his constant research and focus on the science and the facts behind it. Ben, who runs Suspicious Observers, you know, recognizes that the collapsing geomagnetic field of the planet Earth is not only central to the changes that we're going through, but also represents the biggest threat to our civilization. And that's what I want to address with my channel: is how to um, adapt to that and heal that failing side of our habitat that is completely misunderstood or ignored by modern science. Although, to their credit, there is a sworn mission put together by the European conglomerate of space exploration, and that is telling us more about the geomagnetic shield than anything has in the past. So it gives us some look as to what's really happening with the planet and how the planet is not just a spinning bar magnet. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, more on that later. Check out Suspicious Observers if you want to keep appraised and online as long as we can anyway, with what's happening on the sun and how that's affecting the planet. And then finally, the next one that's very important is Ice Age Farmer. This guy's style's presentation is very laid back. You may relate to it, or like me, I find it a little too slow for my mind that races all over the place. But his information that he puts together is critical. He's tracking the food losses that are piling up around the globe, and keeping a spreadsheet on that. And I think keeping up with that, and also he investigates all kinds of technologies that people around the globe, even if you have only an apartment somewhere, you can do farming, and you would be able to grow enough food to actually sustain yourself, which unfortunately will become necessary within our lifetime. So check that out and use it as information and a resource while you can. It's all good. And there are numerous other channels on YouTube that you can look at. I simply don't have the time to go get into them. One in particular, Ice Age 2050, is great because it's run by a 15-year-old who's actually on top of this. And if he represents the future of our race, then we're in good hands. All right, let's move on. Okay, science is actually business science. It's organized for economic purposes, and as a result, the initials of business science represents what people commonly know BS to represent, and it's misleading and dangerous, and it will be the death of us all. Um, the first person to fall victim to that was, in fact, the man who developed a technology that could actually save us. Unfortunately, and he regretted it too, he developed polyphase power, or three-phase power, AC, as most of us know it, that drives the world today. And that network, that power grid, was designed and limited to maximize the amount of revenue that could be generated from it, and also to facilitate the control and exploitation of people around the globe. So it works very well as that, and the fact that we're all dependent on it makes it, the big stick in the hand of the people running the economy have. So J.P. Morgan was a master exploiter of resources and people. He got frustrated 2 times before he actually was able to turn the tables on Tesla. But Tesla's actions cut into his profits deeply when he first created AC power, because Morgan was invested in DC power. He was the money behind Edison, who was, raking it in. At the time Tesla showed up with his ideas of AC power that everybody said was crap, and they were wrong. He proved with the World's Fair in Chicago that it was way more economical than DC power, and essentially uh, ended that future for Morgan as a way of making money. So later, Morgan invested in the AC program that made Tesla rich, which was powering up Niagara Falls, something that he saw as a youth as something he would be doing in his future, and he realized that prescient vision. So he built generators that operated at Niagara Falls and lit the city of Buffalo. But Morgan, who financed that, obviously also worked with Tesla and understood the technology and acquired some companies and put together his own AC efforts on the side, forming General Electric, who actually built identical generators to Tesla's and delivered them a year earlier than Tesla's program completed. Um, did Morgan manipulate the timing of those two events? Probably through his financial, might. I suspect so, although there's nothing to really prove that. But the first AC power plant was in fact set up in California at Folsom, and it electrically lit the city of Sacramento a year before Buffalo got lit. But that didn't stop Westinghouse, who was behind that program, and paying Tesla royalties for the use of his patents, um, from continuing and dethroning the DC power plants of New York City that Edison had built, and essentially lighting up New York, which is where Morgan lived. And I'm sure every light bulb he saw and every power device kind of, was another little turn of the screw that made him hate Tesla even more. So in 1901, well, actually 1900, when Tesla, whose lab had been blown up or destroyed in New York, uh, came back from Colorado Springs, where he replicated all of his experiments to transmit power wirelessly and also to send signals without loss around the globe. When he came to New York looking for investors to help him fund this huge project and demonstrate that he could do all this with his new impulse technology, um, Morgan stepped up, promised him to do it, and then proceeded to bankrupt Tesla. He got him to spend all his money, and then he withdrew his funding. So Tesla fell. He also organized with his considerable financial clout. He literally was richer than any kingdom in the world at that time, and used that money to seduce all the other agencies, industries, and institutions to get on board and join him in being financially successful and accumulating wealth. And as such, he totally corrupted science. I'm convinced he funded and backed the idea of of convincing Einstein to promote relativity, which was Tesla knew from his experiments and work that it was all untrue, not real. It was fake science, and the two of them argued. Einstein insisted that Tesla was the smartest man he ever met, and towards the end of his life, he essentially agreed that all the stuff he had presented was wrong. But by then, everybody was on the gravy train and making money, and they ignored it. So pure BS. Just say no. Look to reality. Open your eyes and see it for what it is. And these are some of the details of that better science model that I'm sure you'll come across. So maybe they'll guide your way. Um, Take a look. The key thing that is the bottom point here, accepting that a better model of science and reality will lead to the integration of physics with metaphysics. It's essentially applied physics, as I've stated before. Also, it will enable what's necessary during the Ice Age, and that is creating energy without consuming resources, because we won't have the resources available to sustain energy production. And this obviously has been done in the past, because we have discovered these underground cities where obviously lots of people and livestock have lived, and there's virtually no sign of soot or other consumed deposits on the surfaces of the walls or ceilings within these underground cities. So clearly they had power that didn't pollute, and perhaps even as the technology that I would like to foster the expansion of, had the ability to create air and water literally out of nothing. And it's a natural thing. That's why our planet isn't barren and has atmosphere today, because there's no seal keeping it on the planet. It leaves into space all the time, and but constantly the planet is making more. And we know how that happens with the technology that was discovered back in the 80s. Okay, and I'll get to that later. And also, these other things that, were matter of fact in Star Trek, matter replication, projecting energy and matter remotely, creating things is all possible. And if some of it has been demonstrated already by accident. Okay, so uh, moving on. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you understand. If you do the research, then you'll get the message, which I'm going to summarize here real quickly. The geomagnetic field that protects us on the planet and has enabled us to live the life the way we have is failing. That's changing the energy exchanges and the balances of energy on the planet. This is a common cycle that the planet goes through, has done many times. It has forced the extinction of more species than we can count. It has driven our species into what's known as a genetic bottleneck. They have demonstrated by the mitochondrial DNA within all of us that the diversification between us was limited to at most 5,000 individuals at one point in time. And this coincided with a transition period between the ice ages that happen in frequently on the planet. Um, this time, with our technology as it is today, optimized for cash flow rather than reality, I believe it will extinct us as a species too. So it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed quickly. Otherwise, we will be the cause of the end of us working with natural phenomenon that is coming. One of which is through my vision and my intuition, I've identified how the planets align and impact the surface of the sun, which stimulate sunspots and flares. That in 2017, multiple times these flares blasted Mars. Due to the planetary alignment, I saw a correlation there and perhaps causation. I predicted that we would see a flare come near us in this April this year, 2018, and that happened. It actually passed, past us. It went through our orbit a month after we had moved beyond that point. So it happened, and then the flaring stopped, and the sunspot disappeared because the alignment shifted with us moving and the other planets moving. So that was, to me, a data point validation that I might have a reasonable process mapped out here using the same data sets that I found on the internet. I see the next event happening in early November of this year, and then again we'll see multiple events in March of 2020. It is something that has been foreseen by remote viewers, and it's most likely to be Earth-ending in terms of life as we know it. The Earth, of course, will recover. It just won't sustain life for a certain period while that recovery is happening. So we need to take action. This is a real problem. I think it's ironic. My dad, lived through the Depression. He and my mom both nearly starved to death. He was rescued by um, the Masons. They brought food to his home in the city where he lived during a time when the whole family, despite all their efforts of what they were doing, and he was just a child himself, could not feed themselves. So um, he recognized that we were always at risk, but didn't really understand the science behind it. I think it's ironic because I sort of lived my life the other way, knowing and trusting that things would be there, as most of us have, until now. And now I realize that he was right. He was just a generation too early. Um, so that's the bottom line. We need to get ready, and if you do the research, I'm pretty sure you'll understand why I believe this and why this is happening, and understand that the economy is driving what we're doing and how we succeed today, and Mother Nature doesn't trade in cash. Reality bites. So live long and prosper. Thanks for watching. Love you all. Hope and pray for the best. Peace and good luck.